Every man and every woman is a star. You are a star. Your life is an interesting, fascinating, entertaining, legendary adventure. And it's played out ultimately for an audience of one. You've already paid your admission. Don't hang out in the lobby. Go in, get your popcorn, go in, and enjoy the show. You may think that your life is unimportant, uninteresting, undramatic, uncomedic, but it's not. It's a great drama. It's a great comedy. It's a great adventure. It's a great opera, or in my case, more like a kabuki. Kabuki thing. The point I'm trying to make is all brought up from the date today, okay, which in the DuQuette family drama, comedy, farce, June 23rd is a day that sticks out. It lives in infamy. It's June 23rd, 1967. I posted a Wikipedia article about what was known at the time and still is known as one of the greatest police riots in American history. And it all had to do with the war in Vietnam and the popular, almost uprising, if you will, against U.S. policy in Vietnam. In high school, so I'm taking us back to about 1964. When I first started high school. I graduated in 66. I was fortunate enough to have two teachers in our public high school who were extremely knowledgeable in social studies and such. And as the war in Vietnam was escalating, and while people just a couple years older than I were already going into war and coming home dead, I was lucky enough to at least be turned on to a more international view of the war in Vietnam, which brought with it the awareness of what President Eisenhower warned the country against, the military-industrial complex. Big American business that was important to the economy, but it was big business selling arms, not only to ourselves but to others around the world. Anyway, I became radicalized. I remotely joined first the Student Peace Union because, well, seemed like a nice moderate little group, and started to receive literature and from the more I guess liberal commentators, philosophers, and such. Then as it got more and more serious, and as the war escalated, I joined the Students for a Democratic Society. I had to drive myself to Omaha, and in order to meet those people, and that whole genre, I guess, was sort of lumped up in the category of the New Left peace movement. So I was, when it started to get hard and heavy around 1965, I felt it was kind of my duty to at least draft counsel my fellow students at Columbus High School. And I had my protest kit with information, literature, and I would literally counsel my fellow students, all boys in those days, how to legally avoid being drafted and sent off. And I believe it was probably against the law to do that, to draft counsel on school property. You know, we wouldn't, the other side, we wouldn't want them to do it either, but here I was doing it in the lunchroom every day and giving people literal instructions on how to register for the draft and things like that. And I was expelled. I had been expelled a year earlier because I wouldn't cut my hair. I was in a band, for Christ's sake. Okay, this is from my life with the spirits, okay? Now, all of this is coming up because just in the last couple weeks, a man named Daniel Ellsberg has passed away. Daniel Ellsberg was an analyst for the Rand Corporation. And all of these what might have seemed like radical theories about our involvement in the Vietnam, the military-industrial complex, and things like that. All of that was like underground information. But Daniel Ellsberg worked for the Pentagon and knew it was even worse. The situation was even worse than imagined by the New Left, and he took his information to the New York Times. Thousands of documents, later called the Pentagon Papers, outlining in no uncertain terms, documenting the fact that we knew that the war was unwinnable, that literally the government, Lyndon Johnson, and the U.S. government was lying to the American people, and as the war was escalating and more young men were dying, the lies were also escalating. And so the Pentagon Papers proved, yeah, that's what's happening. It's in black and white. Well, anyway, all of that's been brought up, and it all has to do with the theme for today's talk, which is you are your own legend. So I know when you get to be my age, you look back a lot and you sort of try to see your life sequentially and with the momentum of what is driving you and what is shaping your character. And well, it makes sense that because you don't have that many more years ahead of you, you sort of jealously review the past. And I think it's a very good thing for everybody to recognize the fact that your life, that your decisions, whether they're mistakes or whether they're or not mistakes, are events in the legend that is you. And that I think it's very helpful to view it as such. Every man and every woman is a star, and you are the star of your own legend. I'm going to just read a couple clips here from My Life with the Spirits. I was expelled from high school on 2 occasions. The first time in my junior year because my hair was too long, and once in my senior year for, quote, get this, seditious activity on campus. Columbus, Nebraska, 17-year-old boy. Goofy, class clown musician. Seditious activity on campus. It was laughable. Okay. But I was expelled. I was reinstated on the former occasion at the intervention of Mr. Larson, was his name, who pointed out to the school board that I was a professional musician who needed a long hair image. And believe me, I Brill creamed it down and I just looked so clean cut. But anyway, that I needed a long hair image and my family needed my support because of my father's terminal illness, which is absolutely true. The charge of seditious activity on campus was dropped, and I was reinstated when a local Episcopal minister, a friend in the anti-war movement, and a member of the American Civil Liberties Union, intervened on my behalf. Okay. I go on with a chapter called California Dreamin'. The second I graduated from high school, I had the car running. I had my Volkswagen bus, my 1960 Volkswagen bus running almost. Second I got my diploma, I was back to California. And I go on about how I, connected with my would-be music partner, Charlie Harris, how I played my guitar in saloons and got good gigs like at the Golden Bear with Hoyt Axton and things like that, which is just accidentally fell into it. But it's part of a good legend, okay? And I accept my legend, okay? Constance left Nebraska and came to live with me on June 15th. We just celebrated our Shack Up anniversary. June 15th, 1967. The sweet distractions of our honeymoon prevented us from accompanying my brother Mark and a nice young Quaker couple named Carl and Elsa. Actually, their name was Ron and Nancy. They had 4 children, little children. Prevented us from accompanying Mark and a nice young Quaker couple named Ron and Nancy to a peace demonstration on June 23rd in Los Angeles. This event would have a profound effect upon Mark, my brother, and change all our lives dramatically. President Johnson was to appear at the Century Plaza Hotel in Los Angeles. It was a perfect opportunity for the Southern California peace movement to mobilize the most massive demonstration to date against the continuing escalation of the war in Vietnam. If you'll read that article, there's well over 10,000 people. And in those days, that was really big. The movement on the West Coast was made up primarily of young, white, adult students, teachers, clergy, and liberal professionals of the sort of JFK, RFK ilk. So it was just a pretty buttoned-down crowd, okay? The day started with a festive love-in atmosphere that had characterized earlier LA demonstrations. The crowd was composed of well-dressed young couples pushing baby carriages and speckled college types in blue work shirts and corduroy jackets. Before sunset, these dilettantes would become violently committed political radicals. Everyone expected the scenario to follow that of previous demonstrations. The demonstrators would position themselves in front of the hotel and chant as long and as loud as possible for the benefit of the television news crews. The police would eventually give the order to disperse, and everyone would boo and hiss for a few minutes and then return to their cars feeling defiantly self-satisfied. This day would be different. 2 lines of riot-equipped officers sandwiched the entire assembly in front of the hotel. When the order came to disperse, the demonstrators were prevented from moving by the line of officers in the back. So they got 10,000 people and a complete line of billy-clubbed officers in the back of them. And in front of them, a line of billy-clubbed officers telling them to move back. And they couldn't move back. They could only be pinched closer and closer together. And if they couldn't move back, they were then in violation of a police order and qualified to get their brains beat out. The officers in front of the hotel were ordered to advance on the crowd and use their batons on anyone who would not move. At the same time, the police in back of the demonstrators were ordered to use their batons on anyone attempting to move back. For 25 bloody minutes, the police clubbed away in a shameful attempt to make sure every demonstrator got a taste of the baton. Later investigations, they were indeed ordered to do just that. The news bureaus around the country called it the worst police riot since the 1930s. Witnesses said it was a miracle nobody died at the scene. Scores were seriously injured and hospitalized. My brother Mark was beaten on the head and face and returned home with his glasses broken and his clothes covered with blood. Ron and Nancy were also bruised and bloody, their Quaker commitment to nonviolence severely shaken. The events of June 23rd, 1967, instantly polarized the political consciousness of Southern California. Moderate Democrats became ultra-liberals. Ultra-liberals became radicals. And radicals became anarchistic communists. Shocked by the brutality, but steadfast in their patriotism, moderate Republicans became conservatives. Conservatives became ultra-nationalists, and ultra-nationalists became fascists. Sound familiar? No one, it seemed, could remain moderate or neutral. The horrifying reality of the war in Vietnam and the increasing brutality and repressive domestic environment had a curious effect on the spiritual life of our little circle of family and friends. And in earlier chapters, I mentioned how the introduction of LSD had sparked our interest in Eastern mysticism and mystical things. As the chaos escalated, so did our efforts towards self-discovery. We engaged in an almost desperate struggle to quickly gain enlightenment. We believed it would be our only avenue of escape in the coming Holocaust. Constance and I were married in November, and I simply stopped going to college. Ron and Nancy invited us to come and live with them and their 4 children in the suburban college community of Irvine. Carl taught mathematics and computer science at the University of California, Irvine, and Nancy, a Vassar College graduate, was a professional midwife. We became the neighborhood's token hippies, and we were instantly embraced by the local liberal establishment, yearning to breathe hip. By day, Constance babysat, and I gave guitar lessons. By night, Ron and Nancy hosted sumptuous sit-on-the-floor banquets where we'd introduce the neighborhood to marijuana, Alan Watts, Ravi Shankar, and recorded Tibetan chants and electronic music. In March of 1968, we started shopping for a larger home in the nearby canyons and forests where we could establish a private communal base. We didn't want to move too far away from Ron's job at the university. On April 4th, our plans changed because of the assassination of Martin Luther King, plunged us into a state of tangible paranoia. Timothy Leary was advising folks to tune in, turn on, and drop out. We were already tuned in and turned on. Nothing now remained but to drop out. Okay. Now, we could view, well, the rest, they say, is history. But it's only history if you look at it as such. And I guess the point of today's little talk is for me to encourage you to look at your life, the events in your life, to pinpoint certain key events that sort of trigger, like a spark plug, the next phase in your life, in your development, and to see it as such, to see it as an adventure, to see it as a drama, to see it as you are the protagonist of your own life's play. The legend of you. Embrace the legend of you, because in a sense, you are an audience of one. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love and do will.